Okay, so my name is Chuck Walder. I'm the Geauga County Auditor. I want to just point out a couple members of my staff that I've asked to come. If after this presentation, we're going to take your questions. If you have specific questions, you want to reach out to somebody, I'm going to give you some names of people you can grab. Ron Leidy is over here in the yellow shirt. He's my Chief Deputy Auditor. Ron's like the shell answer man. If you need an answer, you go to Ron. And if you want a right answer, you go to Ron again.
Then go to Chuck.
Yeah, then he yells at me. Pam is a person who greeted you. She's one of my deputy auditors and also my fiscal manager. We've got Bonnie in the back. Bonnie, raise your hand. She's in the real estate department. Next to Bonnie is Tim. He's one of our certified appraisers. Next to Tim is Heather. She's one of our certified appraisers. If you go the other way from Bonnie, you've got Lou. Lou's in our GIS department. He does a lot of the posting of the values and does all of the RealLink data. So you're familiar with RealLink. Lou is like the go-to RealLink guy. Who did I miss that's here? Anybody else? Oh, Kristen Sinatra is here. She's in our budget department. She does all of the budgetary work as well as the distribution of the budget information to the local subdivisions.
Michael Dorsa.
Oh, Michael Dorca's with ADP. So raise your hand, Michael. Michael's kind of not live streaming this. He's recording this, and we're going to make it available for later viewing. So I wanted to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to do this. I wish it were under better circumstances. I wish I was here being able to share with you good news. Although I am an advocate and I believe even in bad times, there is good that you can derive from it. So I want to start this with a joke that I learned down in the lobby. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can get this right because I'm terrible at jokes. I've been having a lot of nightmares lately, and just the other night I had a nightmare that I was a muffler, and I woke up exhausted. It was actually pretty funny, I thought. So that's the kind of spirit. And actually, you know, we were down in the lobby when the gentleman told me the joke. His wife just kind of rolled her eyes. So I guess he'll. So we're going to go through some PowerPoint screens. Some of this will be incredibly dry and boring because it really doesn't matter. But I thought it was important to give you some context because without the context, all you hear is results. And I don't know that that's always the best approach. So let me see if I got this thing fired up and working. Michael, you may need to turn this thing on. Oh, you said it was on that side. It's on this side. Okay, I just want to briefly go through the real estate process, the reappraisal process. Now, we do reappraisals every 6 years, and that's required by law. So this is the ORC. If you're an ORC person or a lawyer, you may want to write that down. That is the requirement that the statute requires me to do a on-premise or a visual appraisal of every parcel in the county. And that's required every 6 years. Every third year, so every half period between those 6-year increments, we do what's called an update or a triennial, where we do updates to that database. It doesn't mean values can't change in between those, but those are the requirements of law. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the other things we do. This requirement, which is this year, requires a physical street view of every parcel in the county. 52,000 parcels were visited in the last 18 months. We take market information based on sales for the last 3 years and we compare them to the particular parcel we're reviewing. So it's a true comparative analysis of your market condition. We then create what's called a tentative abstract. We prepare it, submit it to the Ohio Tax Commissioner. That Ohio Tax Commissioner then runs it through their metrics and their sales records for the entire state as well as northeastern Ohio. And they provide us a range, a target range of what they believe the market should either rise or fall to in order to equate to true value. We then have the task of adjusting our values to either align or dispute what the state tax commissioner states. And I will tell you, we presented our first argument to the state tax commissioner and they rejected it. They said it was too low. I believe our first was 24, maybe some change. They said, no, the data shows it should be higher. Well, their range was 25 to 35. That's what they thought our range was. Once we submitted the final one that they approved, the state tax commissioner then allows us to create what's called a final abstract. We're working on that final abstract as we speak, which is taking the final data that they've approved and putting it into the form that accepts their database to our neighborhoods. Once the November election is done, the Board of Elections has to certify all the new ballot issues that are on that election. And when they do, we can then update those records to the state, who then generates the tax rates for every parcel. And then we load it in our computer system, and finally, we then can prepare a bill. And actually, the treasurer is the one who prepares the bills. Lou is the one who loads it in the system, but then they prepare the bill. So I always tell people, when you're mad about your tax bill, call the treasurer. It's no one's fault. Our job is to do what the law requires us to do. So that's in a nutshell what the process is. This whole process takes us about 18 months. So we started this about 18 months ago. It's not a quick process. This is the schedule that I showed you earlier on that we have. We're on a 6-year schedule. Jaga is identified in the 2023 appraisal year cycle. The other entities that are listed are also doing their reappraisals along with us. And I will tell you, I've actually asked my staff to go through and check to see what the range is of other people's changes. And Kristen did that as best she could. We saw everyone from 20% to 45%, I believe, was one of the highest, 45 or 50%. So the whole state is experiencing what we're experiencing. Not that should make you feel good. I don't feel good about that. 30% increase is still 30% increase, and it's outrageous in my view. You will also see that we are then going to have to do our update in 2026. So we're just following the schedule. Next year, other people will do their reappraisals. The year after, another group will do. There's an A clause, a B clause, and a C clause, and that's how we follow it. Okay? Before we get into actually what happens during the reappraisal, I thought it'd be important to define a few terms. In the auditor's office, when I first started, I learned that, like, they speak Greek, right? And they're talking away, and I'm like, oh boy, I gotta catch up here because I don't have a clue what they're talking about. But the stuff really does make sense once you understand the terms. So let's first talk about what is market or appraised value. If you go to RealLink and you call up your parcel, you'll see that term highlighted. You're going to see appraised value a lot on there, right? Well, that is what your home would sell for on the open market. That's what we believe your house is really worth. When you say, hey, what's your house worth? Go to your appraised value, and that's the number we think it is. Okay? But then you'll see something called either taxable value. Some counties call it taxable. We call it assessed value. And that is 35% of your appraised value. Because the legislature said you can tax on 35% of the actual market value of a parcel. That's what the law says. So we show you both your appraised value and then your assessed value. But you just take the first one and multiply by 0.35, you get the second one. So it's not fancy math, but you need to know that. And that value, that assessed value, is what we apply your tax rate to. It's not your market value or your appraised value, it's your assessed value. A lot of people everybody hear the word, oh, there's 1 mil levy on the ballot. Does anybody really know what that means? Oh, well, we got a gentleman who wrote House Bill 920 in the room. So yes, he's gonna know what that means. So a mill is really $1 of taxation for every $1,000 of assessed value. But remember, assessed value is 35% of your actual market value. So if you do the math on both sides of the equation, a 1 mil is $35 of taxation for every $100,000 of your market value. Does that make sense? If your house is worth $200,000, a 1 mil levy is going to cost you $70 a year. Makes sense? Straight math. It's when they get into fractions and all that, it gets difficult. Now, effective mills. So this is actually relevant in this because this is what generated House Bill 920 in a sense. Effective mills is moving an old millage to today's dollars, because as time goes on, the value of the dollar becomes reduced, correct? So a levy passed, for example, in 1976 is worth a fraction of today's money. So we convert it to what it would be in today's money. That's when people talk about effective millage. So I always laugh because you go to some townships or villages and they say, wow, you got a lot of milled levy tax. Well, you have to know when those levy passed. You can't just say 20 is a big number. If all 20 mills was passed in 1976, effectively it could be 3, 4 mills. So you can't use that argument. You have to know when it happened, and effective millage is kind of the conversion chart for us, if that makes sense. Now here comes the real thing we're gonna talk about today. That's called inside millage. Before this reval, did anybody, other than one person in the room, know what inside millage was? And did you really care? Probably not. Inside millage, I think, is probably the biggest hurdle we have, and that is because you don't vote for it. All of the other levies that you have on the ballot, you had to cast your vote. You have a say in that in government. Inside millage, the legislator said, we're going to allow up to 10 mills to be applied to your value just to support government or local subdivisions. And in Geauga, we share that money. That money is split up. 25% of it, or 2.5 mills, goes to the county. The county office is here. 4.5 mills, or 45% of it, goes to whatever school district your parcel is in. And 3 mills, or 30% of it, goes to your local government. If you live in a township, it goes to the township. If you live in a village, it goes to the village. You live in the city, it goes to the city. That's how it's divided. You have no say in that tax. That is the component of your tax bill that the state legislature said, we're going to charge you just to give you government. Who would have thought we're paying for that? But we do. And then outside millage. I think we all understand what outside millage is. That's when you vote on a levy. So I always kind of laugh. Sometimes when you're in my position, and I get this, people get angry because their tax bill comes. And the first thing they say is, you raised my taxes. And so I look and I say, where do you live? And they tell me I live in Russell Township, which is where I live. And I said, well, you passed this many police levies, this many fire levies, and this many road levies. How did I raise your tax? I just voted, and maybe I didn't vote for them. The reality is, you have direct control over outside millage. My issue with what's happening with this reval, it's affecting what you don't have any control over. That's my issue. That inside millage, you don't control, I don't control. Somebody just applied it to you. So here's the questions that we've been seeing on what's going on with this reval. And first, people ask, is the value of 1 mill in Auburn Township the same as it is in Russell Township? And a lot of people have a misconception. 1 mill is 1 mill everywhere. And it is, by definition, it's 1/1000th of the value. It isn't by number, because 1 mill is generated by the value in that entity. And so if you look at it, every entity has different parcels and different value contents. So the 1 mill calculation is always 1/1000th of the value of the entity you're describing. So there's 1 mill in Auburn, and there's 1 mill in Russell, and there's 1 mill in Chester, and they're not the same number of dollars. They're all 1 mill, but they're not the same dollars. What makes up your property tax bill? Everyone know this. I mean, you've gone to the tax bill and know where your money's going. Here's really the 3 components. You've got money that's going to inside mills. That's that 10 mill limit that I told you about, divided up to the school, going over to townships or villages and the county. But then you've got all your outside mills. So if you have a county levy, if there's a levy for mental health, if there's a levy for a road fund, if there's a local levy for fire or for roads, those are all included in the outside millage category. And then the last category are assessments. And assessments are if you're on a sewer, for example, or you have a water plant, or if you're a member of a streetlight district, or you have an ESID, which is an environmental special investment group. If you're in any of those categories, those are assessed on your tax bill, but they're really not taxed. They're assessments. And those don't fluctuate at all with value. Well, the next question we get is, and it's most relevant today, what taxes are affected by my value change? Your value, you just found out your value went up 30%. What taxes are going to move? The tax that's going to move directly with that 30% is inside millage. It's a 1-to-1 correlation. If my house increases by 30%, will my total tax bill increase by 30%? Anybody know the answer to that? Not likely, right? There's only one condition where I can ever imagine that happening, and that is if you live somewhere, and wherever you live, please let everyone know, because they're probably going to move there, where there are no outside levies and there's no assessments. Because then all you have is inside millage, and that's the only thing moving with value. the reality is, my answer is unlikely. Also, you need to know that House Bill 920, which is the inflationary measure that was passed in 1978, which we have an expert on House Bill 920 today, so I'm going to tap him for some answers. That restricts the generation of outside millage monies, and it captures the value in the time that it was passed. It doesn't let it continue to inflate as time goes on. That's what House Bill 920 did. And a lot of people were upset with 920 when it happened. Personally, 920 is a savior. That could be the solution to this inside millage problem. If you think about it, why is inside millage treated differently than outside millage? It's all millage. So this is how the appraisal, and I'm sorry the screen's so small, you have a copy of it. This is how our appraisal map turned out. I think the thing I want to pound home today is that although I'm telling you that our average in the county is 29.5%, you're not going to experience, the odds of you getting exactly 29.5% increase on your property are pretty slim because it's an average. Some will be higher, some will be lower. That's numerical average. Chances are your number will be something different. And it depends on where you live. So for example, the highest reval rate that was applied on this reval was in South Russell Village at 37.7%. And remember, most of those people go to Chagrin schools or the high school districts. They're going to come unglued on this. I get it. The lowest was Parkman at 19.2. That's the range. Now, even in Parkman, not everyone got 19.2 because that's the average. Some will be below, some will be above. You got to remember averages. Here's what I call the inside millage windfall. And this is the part that really irritated me about what happened to inside millage. As soon as, and you have this chart, it's much easier to read. As soon as this reval occurred, we knew inside millage was going to shift proportionately to that increase, right? So this is the three breakdowns of entities who are benefiting from inside millage. The very top line, which I'm circling there, that's the county. The county is going to experience, and these are approximate numbers because we're doing math on the fly here. The county is going to get a revenue increase of about $2.4 million as a result of this reval. And my argument is the county didn't do anything to get that. You're getting taxed that much more. The schools are going to get a total of $4.3 million more money because they get 45% of it. And finally, all local governments, townships, villages, and the city combined are going to get almost $2.9 million. And you can see each entity, wherever you live, you'll see how much more they're going to get. Some are modest. I mean, look at Aquila Village, they're going to get $1,300 roughly. I mean, is that earth-shattering? No. But if you look at the number of houses they have, that's a lot per house. So my issue with this is there is an unfair advantage or windfall provided to beneficiaries of inside millage that really didn't do anything to create value to your home. You created the value to your home. You improved the structure. You put new windows in. You're the one who's maintaining the exterior. Government isn't doing that. In fact, government does everything to help you not do that. So that's my issue with what's happening. So let's just do a quick math exercise of how you can calculate how much you think your taxes are going to go up. Let's just say on average, and we know this, inside millage is going to increase by 30%. I'm going to round it up from 29.5 to 30% to make it easy. And we know typically there's only a couple exceptions, and Ron will give you the exact addresses. There's only a couple exceptions where somebody is not at the 10 mil limit. There's a couple of school districts way up in Kirtland.
Thompson and Shard.
Yeah, there we go. So he'll tell you the addresses. They're a little bit below that because we share it with the district outside of the county. The school is outside the county. So it's an anomaly, not relevant for our conversation today.
Not true of Chardon.
Pardon?
Not true of Chardon.
Not true of Chardon. We know 1 mil, from the definitions we had before, is 1 mil yields $1 of tax for every $1,000 of assessed value. But remember, that's 35% of your real market value. So that cost is $35 in tax for every 100,000 of value. And we know that everybody is getting in the county approximately 10 mils of inside millage, and that's going to be $10 of tax for every 1,000, or $350 for every 100,000 of value. We just did simple math. If your home was appraised, so you think your home is worth $250,000, then let's go through the math of what's going to happen. Your current inside millage would be $875 a year. On your tax bill, $875 was going to inside millage. And that equation is real simple. I took $250,000, which is your appraised value. I multiplied it by 35% to get your taxable value or your assessed value. I then multiplied it by the $10 per $1,000 of value, and boom, you get $875. If you use the $35 rule, you know there's 2.5 hundred thousandths in 250 thousandths times 350. You get the same number. So however you want to do the math, it works. So now if your value just rose by 30%, what happens to the tax? It's straight math. It's just that number is going to go up by 30 more percent. So your new cost is going to be $1,137.50 per year, or it's going to go up by $262.50. That's substantial. 45% of that increase is going to go to the schools, which is about $118. 25% or $66 is going to go to the county, and about $79 is going to go to your local government. So here's some other things to consider. If you have an existing levy that is on your tax bill, you have a protection mechanism built in. And you can thank the people in 1978 who pushed through House Bill 920. House Bill 920 applied what's called a reduction factor to the millage in today's money. So it took today's millage and it reduced it to the amount that it was when it passed. That's how that works. So we factor reduction factors into every single mill levy that's passed from things prior to this year. So that's a protection mechanism for you. Also, if passed in this current levy, we are told by the state that they will be sure that the amount certified in the ballot is true. What they don't know is what your value is of your home. What they know is they're only going to collect the amount that we advertised. So when you go to the ballot box and they always tell you how many mills and how much it will bring in, the how much it will bring in is what they're going to hold true to. And then we backfeed that into the equation. Because values are moving now, they have to build in a moderate reduction factor, right? That's what they're going to have to do. And then lastly, if you have an assessment, don't worry, this has no effect on your assessment. So I know there's some folks that have sewer assessments specifically. Your values, your assessments are not going up 30%. No effect at all. Not that that's going to make you feel better. So what can you do? I guess that's the whole point of what we're doing today. What things can you do to offset what's happened? And then I'll tell you what we're doing. If you think your property valuation is too high, and you know, I guess this is where we have a leap of faith. Because as soon as somebody knows that their taxes are equated in some way to valuation, right away they want to say, oh, my house isn't worth that. But as soon as they put it on the market, it's going to go market for exactly what they said. That's the challenge here. We have to be true to the values. But if you think it is too high, here's what I recommend. Get an appraisal. Appraisals will be considered by the BOR in setting value. They just will, because they're the next best thing to an actual sale. You give me a certified appraisal from a certified Ohio licensed person, we will take it into consideration and go, oh, we have no reason to challenge it, unless there's something in that makes us challenge it. If you don't want to get an appraiser, or if you want to hedge your bet, get as much evidence as you can to justify a change to your value. So if you defer doing a roof, or you have a problem on the inside of your home, your basement leaks, you have a dated kitchen, we don't see those things. We are doing street side physical appraisals. We're looking at your house. We can't see it from the road. We don't go inside. You know what's inside. So if you bring photos and say, look at my 1950 kitchen. My house isn't worth what you see. I make the outside look nice, but it's got curb appeal, but not inside. That's a valid reason to argue a reduction in value, because we never see it. More importantly, if we've recorded something wrong, let's say we're saying you have 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and you have 5,000 square feet. You go, that's funny. I've got 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and I'm 2,500 square feet. That changes your value. And our property card will have to be adjusted, and your value will have to be adjusted. And we're just human, so we can make a mistake. Once you get this, ask for what's called an informal review from our office. My real estate people will bring in outside certified appraisers in addition to themselves, and they will review your evidence and they will negotiate with you to say, hey, you got a point here. Or you know what? Your square footage is this, but this is how we measure it. And our measurement appears accurate. Some people measure from the inside, we measure from the outside. So our values are all outside measurements, just so you know. If you go to check us, check outside, don't check inside. If you can't get satisfaction through what we call an informal review, then you always have the right to file what's called a complaint against valuation of real property. And it's called a DTE1. You Google it. It's a state form. Fill it out. You have a right to a hearing that you can show 3 members of the Board of Revision. It's myself, the treasurer, and 1 commissioner. And we will hear your evidence and we will vote if we think, yes, that value is too high, or no, we think we're accurate. And then you have appeal rights after that. You can go to the state or you can go across to the common police court. I encourage you to take advantage of this. This is your service. You're not going to burden me. You're not offending me if you do this appeal. I get it. I would do it too if I felt my value was wrong. The other thing you can do, and this is where we're kind of getting off the rails, and that's something we haven't done before. I would encourage you to look at the stakeholders who are benefiting from Inside Millage. And I would encourage you to encourage them to think about what they can do to offset this windfall. Now, there are some entities who have very good logic of why they need that windfall. I'm not here to dispute that or to argue with them. I'm simply saying, you are the taxpayers. You need to hold your government accountable. I can talk till I'm blue in the face. You are the voters. You're going to make much bigger impact on these entities than I ever will. Now, that's not stopping me from what I'm doing, but I'm asking you to help me do this. If you go to the county commissioners and say, hey, you're getting $2.4 million, you've got 2 levies here that you control. One's in Department of Aging, one's in JFS. Why don't you lower those levies and give them the money that you're getting on this windfall? It's a zero-sum game. Our taxes then don't change. You just saved us 25% of our tax. That's a legitimate question. Same with schools. I mean, I get schools are not funded properly. I get it's unconstitutional. But you know what? It should be voted by the people. That's what democracy is. And these schools are getting a lot of money with nobody voting for it. And they have to be held accountable for that. So I would challenge you to just say, why don't you not ask for as much, or why don't you reduce another levy in exchange for getting this windfall? And then it's a zero-sum game. If everyone did that, you would have no tax increase. Now, I was born on a Tuesday. It wasn't last Tuesday. We all know that's probably not going to happen. But I will tell you this. We did send letters of recommendation to all of these entities. Those went out this week. Yesterday. Yesterday, I sent to the commissioners beginning of the week. It went to the other entities yesterday. I've already gotten townships contacting me saying, how do we do that? So there are people that want to do the right thing, and I encourage that and I applaud them. Even the county commissioners asked during my budget hearing, what can we do to offset this? And I said, reduce your 2 levies. The treasurer, the prosecutor, and myself are going to the next commissioner meeting, which is Tuesday at 9:30 next week, to present to them a way that they can offset this tax increase. That's the true. We can either wait for Columbus to fix it, right? Or we can do it ourselves. Those are the options. Now, granted, this is a 1 year at a time fix, but I think we're going to be quicker than Columbus. It's just my guess, right? Because Columbus tends to do things like turning of the calendar page. But there are some other things that we are working on, and I wanted to share those with you. So there's 2 approaches that can be taken with this. In the stock market, when the whole stock boom occurred, they found out that when people were trading and it was causing the stocks to skyrocket, what did they do? They shut down the market. It's called a relief valve, right? When things got crazy, they just slowed the system down. Well, that's one thing they could consider doing in Columbus. Figure out a relief valve. When property values skyrocket, set a cap, a threshold. It can't exceed more than 5% on tax increase. Problem solved. At least it's slowed down. Or the obvious solution here is they have House Bill 920. It's applied to outside millage, applied to inside millage, and call it a day. I'm guessing And I probably shouldn't say this, but my experience with Columbus is they can take something very simple and make it very complicated until they never get it done. But, I'm hoping that there are some people in Congress that want to do the right thing, and they know there's a problem. The problem is they don't know what the solution is. So we have reached out to Senator O'Brien, who covers Geauga, and she is an ex-auditor. That's why we reached out to her. She is on the Senate group that is working this problem. She wants to know a solution. She wants to do the right thing. She needs your encouragement. So contact your senators, contact your House of Reps. Lou, do you have a
I
question?
was just gonna say that, is it beneficial to contact?
Yeah, it's always, trust me, as an elected official, contacting somebody is always a good thing. Yes.
I talked to the Ohio Department of Taxation today, and this is what they said to me. Current law provides the county budget commissions the ability to lower inside millage rates to protect against tax increases
Yeah.
that are proportional to the increase in market value.
Yeah, here's the
It
problem.
sounds like that's.
That is true. It's a true statement. Here's the problem they're not telling you. The Budget Commission is required by law to do its work by September 1st. Budgets were already done. So I can fix this for you, but it's not going to help you till 2025. Everybody want me to wait, or you want me to try to? So we could look at next year's budget. The problem with that is we, as a Budget Commission, have a simple test for budgets: need. If the party doesn't express need, we are obligated to reduce their collection of money. They're going to have 12 months to come up with need. Anybody think nobody's going to figure out how to use this money? ARPA, anybody figure out how to use ARPA and CARES Act money? They burnt every nickel, right? That's my worry. It is true what they're saying, but I think it's a solution. But it's going to be a non-problem by the time we go to solve it, because money is going to be needed and we're going to be left holding the bag, because they're going to appeal our decision and the state will say, well, they demonstrated need. I can't argue what they're doing is being right or wrong. I can't do that on the Budget Commission because I sit on that board. I can only argue, did you present adequate need? It's not a true world that way. That's a good point, though. Okay, any other questions or anything we can work with you? Yeah.
Do you know what the average dollar increase will be for a homeowner in Geauga?
Hey, Ron, what's the total amount of inside millage? Oh, we get that. We can pull that chart up.
Right.
Let me just do this for you. They're making me go all the way back through all the slots. Oh, there it is. So the total is about $9.6 million of increase. Divide that by 52,000 parcels if you do average.
Well, but your specific parcel, there's that, it's the, page 4, sorry.
This. Page 4. You think I numbered this?
I know, the quick math exercise.
Oh, the quick math exercise. That's not page 4. Okay.
So
Oh, sorry.
your house value, with, then you just do the calculation by the assessed.
Yeah, I mean, if you do it for the countywide,
Yeah.
countywide average is 30%. So whatever, anybody can want to raise their hand and volunteer what they think their house is worth or what it is on real land. I could call that up. Whatever that number is, if it's 200,000, 300,000, 100,000, you just use straight math. It's 10 mils, $1 per 100,000, per $1,000 of value, or $350 per 100,000. So if it's $200,000 house, your current amount is $700. It's going up by 30%. Your net effect is 30% of 700.
Which is about what, 250?
210. Not 210? 30% of 750? 210.
My bill went up $2,200 based on the escrow amounts they're taking out per month,
So I'm guessing you went up more than 30%.
44.1.
There you go. So he's way above average. That's the challenge we've got here. Again, these are all, that's why I kept underlining, on average is a really problem child because you got these huge spreads. You're really feeling the pain. That's why relief is more important to you. Yes, Sam.
Where do we find, or is it on Real Link, what our
Values.
value is now? Or
Yeah. So here's what we're working on. You can right now go to Real Link and you can see your current value. We have loaded in what your new values are. We haven't pulled the trigger yet. We're putting together a calculator for you. You can go to your parcel. You can click on a button and say, here's what mine was, here's what it is, how much is it going up? And we'll get you close. Because one will know your actual increase.
Right.
This gentleman had the exact point. If I do 30%, half the people, 90% of the people will have the wrong number because it's an average. So we're gonna go parcel by parcel. I'm told that's being worked on as we speak, and it should be done hopefully within the next few days, and then we'll go live, and that'll be published on the auditor's site. That's a really good question. Thank you for asking.
And where do I go to get this,
The estimator,
yeah,
what we'll do is we're gonna get a letter in the mail. Everyone here is gonna get a letter in the mail that owns parcels. And it's gonna tell you when that link is ready, just go to the auditor's site and we'll put a hot link at the top of the page. Click on that, it'll take you to that environment. And that'll be right in the real link. Yeah, yes, sir.
And since 1995, 2022, the assessed values have gone up 45%.
Yep.
And they're trying to raise it now 30 to 45% in 1 year.
Well, I don't know that it's from 95 till now. There was actually a reduction in 2008, 2009,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
So it's one of these deals. It's not a straight line. It was a little bit of a slope because it went up and then it dropped.
Okay, but
You're right. Inflation has, and we know for a fact, anybody who reads the paper or anybody who watches the news, the last 3 years, house sales are absolutely nuts. It's people were buying houses, they were fighting each other to buy the house. People with houses that should never have been on the market were on the market selling. And so that is driving up these prices. Now, I always argue what's not fair about that is you have to sell your house to make out. Who's going to do that? Because you can't afford to buy another one. So the relief should be, there's no reason in my opinion why inside millage is coupled to value. It shouldn't be. That's just my opinion. Your point is exactly right. That's a trend that's going to go on forever. And that's what 920 solved on outside levies. Unfortunately, it didn't do inside levies.
Is the inside millage, is this thing a change? Is the inside millage not being affected by 920, is that a change?
No, the inside millage has never been affected by 920.
Okay.
Yep, that's a good question.
So I would like to say something else. I am an old person. I went to school in the 50s and 60s. And I can remember that schools never had to put on levies because 920 was not in effect. 920 went into effect, and ever since then, schools have had to put on levies every 3 or 4 years at best, if not worse. And so people, you say, yeah, you want to control your taxes. Of course we all do. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. But things have to exist. And schools are one thing that need to exist. People choose their community by their school, by how good it is. And it takes money to have a good school. Chardon, which is one of the ones that is in the lower range that you mentioned tonight, doesn't meet the 45% range. We have the crappiest buildings, I think, in the whole county.
Chardon is 4.5 mils.
The schools are, yeah.
Yeah, the school is 40,
The
it's
town-
40.
and
What
earlier,
I'm saying is the
township
floor,
is a little-
the floor thing.
Well,
We are
the ceiling.
45% is what you're saying we're gonna increase by. But what I'm saying is it's not gonna be that much because there's floor. Some of the smaller schools, I think Cardinal, maybe Burton, they're at the floor of 20%, so theirs gonna increase the whole amount. We are not. And the other thing I want to say about that is we've chosen to live in a rural community. I hear all the time, Munson Township, where I used to live, constantly talking about we want to maintain our rural quality. Well, that means we don't have businesses that pay big taxes, like, for example, Solon. Solon has great buildings and pays their teachers a lot more than Chardon or any of our county schools do. And that's because they have business tax base. We don't have that here. We have chosen that. So, and the other thing I'd like to say, if you got a $300,000 house and you're paying essentially, what, $350 a year for that, for your tax assessment?
A $300,000 house? No.
Above what we're paying now.
No.
You said 35% of 300,000.
You'll pay $35 per 1 mil, you've got 10 mil, so it's $350 per 100,000. So it's 350 times 3.
But on top of what we already pay,
You'll
it's
pay
about a $300.
about a $300 increase.
Difference.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. If I divide that by 12, that's what, $35, $30 a month? 20. I buy pizza for $25.
I
And
understand.
I'm saying that it's worth it to pay some taxes and have good schools and good roads and the things that our government does give us. I think that is worth something.
I don't disagree with anything you said. Here's what the fundamental difference I think you and I have. I think it should be the vote of the people of what they want. It shouldn't be the vote of anomaly.
And that's why schools are suffering financially, because
well,
they have to every 3
well,
years or so.
Well, here's what I will say. Here's what I will say. You can go across the United States and schools are funded differently in every state. They are.
Yeah.
And we all know, anybody that's been in Ohio, 35 years ago, they determined that schools are being funded constitutionally, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, for 35 years, the legislature has done this much to fix the problem.
Right.
So I think we can't just assume it's going to happen or it's the way everybody wants it because it hasn't been fixed.
Did they lower income taxes this year at the legislature?
Well, I'm on a fixed income that don't pay crap.
But did they lower, I believe they did lower income taxes.
I don't know.
No.
Sir, you have a question?
I'm not talking about schools, I'm talking about money.
Yes.
Will the estimator include the reduction for the 920?
Oh, there is no reduction on 920 in the inside millage. There is no reduction
No, 920 is outside millage. right?
outside millage.
So when we go online and look at the estimator.
Yes.
Will that reflect the?
We ignore the outside millage when we do that calculator.
You're ignoring it.
Yes,
So what you're doing is showing the differential for the inside millage.
Exactly.
So you're not really showing what our final.
No,
tax
because
bill
we
is.
don't know what levies are going to pass in November either. So that we're like,
So if we have no levies in our district, then you're overstating what the increase.
probably, it's an estimator. Exactly right. It's not, you can't use that to pay your tax bill. You will get an idea of where it's moving though. Yep, that's a good question. Yes, Sam.
Yes, I'm noticing on Real Estate that they changed square footage, and it looks like they're including garage space, basements. Is that correct?
It's true that square footage will be included in basements if they're finished. I do not believe we include garage space and square footage for unfinished basements.
Because I'm noticing that our square footage has increased exponentially.
That I would give us a call. Maybe somebody keyed something wrong. We're happy to take a look. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I know you've spoken about reducing the maximum increase, like to 5% versus the 35, like capping it.
Yeah.
I know other states do that, but for example, California do that because many people are actually taxed out of their homes.
Right.
As their property values increased exponentially, they could no longer afford to live in their homes. And of course, this lady's talking about the pizza. I understand pizza, but there are some people, fortunately, I'm not in that circumstance, but there are people that can't afford the pizza, they can't afford the medications. And this continues, it can tax people right out of their homes. And these are people that are not worried about the school. They're worried about living and keeping their home. So I'm just wondering what it does take to cap that at the 5%. And if that would be retroactive, if it's already in the point for this and we're kind of stuck.
I think my conversations with Senator O'Brien is, it won't happen this year. It's a future fix. And to your point, I appreciate the examples like 300,000 is only going to be worth of pizza. The gentleman in the back, I think, is the greatest example. His went up way more than 30%. He's going to be buying all of us fillets, not pizza. So
Not on a fixed income.
that's the issue.
That's it.
I think we live in a democracy where we should vote on what we want. And I think this is an unvoted mandate of sorts. And that's what I'm objecting to. Whether we can agree that we can afford it or not, I think it's not as material as, shouldn't we have a say in our government? But that's just me. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question, a little bit different. I'll
Sure.
Get off the heated one here for a
Oh,
minute.
thank you very much. Give her something we need.
Because I don't want to get started. When it says here about when you're figuring up our appraisal and, residential, commercial, agriculture. Now, for instance, I'm agriculture, but all around me is commercial.
Yeah.
I live over there by the O'Reilly complex.
Mhm.
So does that
So-
go by my agriculture?
Ag is different. You're 26.1, I believe your number is. Let me go back to this chart right here. Ag went up, ag on average went up 26.1, a little bit lower. Are you on CAUV or are you pure ag?
Yes, I am, and I'm also at a 210.
So all of CAUV numbers have changed.
1810, stone basement.
Yep.
And our homes do not sell for crap on that street.
All of the problem that ag is suffering from in this experience is ag land skyrocketed because people want to build houses. That's what's happened. And that's the unfairness to the farmer.
It is, because we're not allowed to sell it that way unless we want to pay back.
Well, that's true. You'll pay it back and then the developer will make a fortune doing it. So, I don't want to get in the weeds on it, but you will get a little less of a bump, but CAUV values went up 100%. The prime soil value in Chicago, 100%. Ashley Villas went up 300%.
Oh, that's all right.
It's crazy. This is runaway. This is where we have to use some common sense. Sir, you had a question for a long time. I'm sorry.
As an auditor, you're of course living here and you're gonna suffer under this along with everybody else. What is the answer at state level for handling this?
If I had my wish, I am of the opinion, as an auditor, I shouldn't be a legislator. That's my personal opinion. I shouldn't, and the reason I say that is because my job is to test things. You shouldn't create something and then test it because you're biased, right?
Yeah.
But I do have a personal opinion, so I'm going to take off my auditor hat and put on my personal opinion. I think the solution is already in front of us. I think House Bill 920 has proven to at least work to stem the increase due to inflation. It puts it back in the hands of the voter. Your comment is exactly right. Schools have to constantly go to the ballot box, but you know what? They have to constantly go to the ballot box to put people in office too. We don't have life, well, it's up to Supreme Court. Be careful what I say. We shouldn't have life appointments. People should always have choices. And so my argument is, while it's not a perfect solution and it's got its own flaws, I think 920 could in fact, and I'm going to reach out to you, sir, because I know you know 920. I think it's a possible solution. It's worked since 1978 to the point that it was intended to. Is that?
To answer the gentleman's question, I was the chief deputy auditor in Cuyahoga County, and we had a much higher inflation. Property values went up 60% when a reappraisal was done, and taxes were going up 60%.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for the county auditor directly for him. I was his right-hand man. We put together a group of all 88 county auditors from across the state of Ohio and all 88 county treasurers, and we heavily lobbied the state legislature. I helped draft 920. 920 came into being because of that heavy lobbying by Republican and Democrat county auditors and county treasurers. We brought it to the attention of the legislature, lobbied them very heavily, drafted 920, and it became law. So the answer to your question is lobby the state legislature.
Is that what we'd have to do to get them to change from property tax to sales tax or something for the schools?
Of course, absolutely.
Yes,
I
sir.
think people
I've
have
talked to
forgotten.
several state legislatures, and they seem to always want to bounce everything off the county auditor.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
What's the comment to that?
Well, I don't speak for auditors.
I know you can't.
I don't want to do that. I do, sir.
I'm not trying to put words in.
I do sit on the finance committee for the County Auditors Association. I co-chair that branch. We have opinions as individuals, but, I think our goal is to protect the integrity of our offices. And one of our offices requirements is land values and property values. It's also, though, we are also the people that people yell at when taxes change, and we get that. So I think as an auditor, I think there is a solution in hand. And I just don't know why we can't just implement the solution rather than creating a new one. So I am going to not lobby, but I'm recommending to Senator O'Brien that they at least consider just widening 920. How long does that take? I could probably do it in an afternoon, but the state will take a year. But in the meantime, I think the problem still exists. So I don't mean to dodge your question. I just don't feel comfortable as an auditor leveraging a law. I just don't think that's my job.
Well, when I've talked to them, their pushback was, well, all the auditors get together and they don't want to do it. It's just the past.
Well, my conversation with Senator O'Brien was she was an auditor at one time, and she's talked to several other auditors. And unfortunately, in this particular scenario, she's getting conflicting data from auditors. Not all auditors are aligned that the solution, like the House bill that's currently on the floor, was it 928? Isn't that what the House bill is? It's currently trying to resolve this. It wants to wholesale change how we appraise. And they're saying, you're fixing a problem that doesn't exist. Fix the real problem. That's the problem. You know,
187.
187.
187.
Yeah, what's 928? Anyway, so I will say, this is not the same experience that he had in 1978 when all 88 people were, all 88 plus all treasurers from 88 counties were together. It's not the same. It's a different makeup of people.
We did use the County Auditors Association, State Auditor, State of Ohio County Auditors Association, and State of Ohio
Treasurers.
County Treasurers Association.
Yep.
Those two associations got together, heavily lobbied the legislature. House Bill 920 was enacted into law.
Yes, sir.
Do you think it's of any benefit for us to contact Senator O'Brien directly?
You know, I would.
I have the contact information if you want it.
Yeah, I don't want to, please don't say Chuck told me to call you. You're killing me here.
I've already emailed her.
Okay, so I actually talked to her 2 days ago for about an hour and a half about this issue, and she's got these PowerPoints, by the way. Okay, here's what
I'm talking about a voice from the
a
people.
voice from the people is always welcome with any elected official, especially at the legislative level. I would encourage you to do that.
What about Senator Serena?
Yes, definitely.
Has he been talked to?
By
You?
Chris, not by me, but I believe Chris Galloway, who's the auditor in the lake, has talked to Jerry Serino. Yeah, we're kind of picking our own, we all have our own senator and kind of work through them. The Senate seems to be, for lack of a better word, more receptive or more, they're more tuned in because they have an auditor within the Senate. You know, Sandra O'Brien was an auditor. Nobody else has that. And you kind of have to understand how millage works. And you know as well as I do, nobody knows what a mill is. So now you got to start from there. There was another question. Yes, ma'am.
Where would you find a certified appraiser and about how much do they?
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, so there's, you can Google them. They're all over the place. I know we could probably, Tim, can you and Heather help with that? So they're both certified appraisers. They can't do the work for you. I'm just telling you that. You better not be doing any work. But they can give you some names, and trust me, we're not recommending anybody. We're just gonna give you the list of names. We can help you with that. Okay? And there's some local, you know, I'm guessing typical house appraisal could be anywhere from $500 to $2,500. It depends. You know, appraisals are all over the map. Now, if you're looking at this kind of an experience of growth, it may be worth it to do. You have to do that math yourself. There's also cheap appraisers, but
Would you know upfront, would they be able to estimate if you're telling them about how much?
I don't know, guys, you guys did that for a living. Do you do that?
Pardon me?
Did you upfront tell the customer how much it would cost to do an appraisal?
No, because they call that unethical. We're not allowed to do that because then you're basing your fee upon the price of what the appraisal is gonna be
Okay.
or not. There generally is, I work for an appraisal organization. So, but they were charging somewhere around $500 at that time. But it was for, mostly lending institutions like banks and credit unions and stuff like that.
Because I wouldn't be
Right.
wanting to sign someone up and then they give me, if I'm.
Before they do the appraisal for you.
Yeah.
You know, they would say what their standard fees are. Yes, yes, they would be able to do that, but, you know, they don't say, well, if your house is worth this much, I'll charge you this much if it's worth this much.
We do accept bank appraisals, by the way, just so that you know. If you've gotten your bank recently remortgaged or refinanced and you have a bank appraisal, we accept those. So we will consider those as part of the value proposition. Yes, you were first, I believe.
So you answered my question, but I'm joining to comment as a banker. If anyone doesn't have a home equity line of credit on their home, most banks are offering them, and banks absorb the appraisal costs into that.
As long as they expose it to you though, right?
Correct, and they also, with the home equity line of credit, now is a good time with the with the appraisals of the homes going up, a lot of people have more equity available than they have in the past.
Good point. Thank you very much.
Kind of offset both sides.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
I'm aware that you don't know everything that happens in the Ohio state government. Has there been any discussion at all about consideration for people on fixed income.
Yeah. So there's huge initiatives right now for senior awareness, right? We know Ohio in particular, Northeast Ohio in specific, Geauga in particular, is dominating the statistics on the senior community. That's our largest growing group. So yes, the legislature is focusing on different initiatives to give senior relief. So far, I've not been overly impressed with the result of that, but that's just my personal opinion. But it's an ongoing effort. I know there's actually recently an auditor who is running under that platform. He actually is not going to be an auditor anymore. He needs to run for the House to secure senior protection, Dave Thomas and Nash Tabula.
There was something that they took away from seniors.
Yeah. What they did is, so they reduced thresholds. They made the threshold for homestead, they made it higher, so it was harder to get it, which I thought was really unfair to seniors. I mean, look, I'll share with you, I don't have any children. My wife and I have lived here for 37 years. We paid school tax for 37 years. I have no problem with that. There comes a point in your life, though, where you couldn't ever use the service. It's virtually impossible. I mean, I'm not going to have kids right now. But I'm still paying for it, and I'm still paying the increases to it. There's nothing built in the system to plateau at an age where, you know what, I think we do, just like veterans, I think we owe our seniors some advantage when they get to a certain age that stuff should plateau. You should be able to predict your expenditures better than what you used to. And I think that needs to be part of somebody's platform to push in Columbus. I think Dave Thomas, believe it or not, Dave Thomas is like 28 years old, which freaks me out that he's worrying about seniors, but maybe he's got something in mind that I don't know. He's actually moving in that environment, and I encourage him to do it. He's a great auditor too, which I hate losing him as an auditor, but go in, do the right thing.
Him, is probably not at the top of anyone's priority list right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And any other questions? Yes, sir.
I understand that from the state of Ohio, you're allowed to pick 3 years to determine the true market value.
We used the last 3 years,
The
yes.
last 3 years.
Mhm.
Is there any reason why you can't look at prior years to get a blended figure? Because we're looking at an artificial situation right now that's not going to stay the same. It's just like the stock market. I couldn't tell you what the stock market's going to be, a year from now or 2 years from now. And I can't tell you what the value of my home is going to be, because we're in a situation of too few homes, too motivated buyers, and increasing interest rates. And so people are bidding over. There's got to be a blending mechanism so that we can do something that's more fair to the taxpayer.
So to answer your question, yes, the initiative in the House is considering what look back you use. That is one of the criteria they're investigating. The argument was, well, that's what the triennial is. It's a third year adjustment. The argument I've used is, but that's not a reappraisal. So, your point is well taken. I think a 6-year window, since this is a 6-year reappraisal, would be more accurate, in my view, of the trend. But remember, the definition, I don't determine that standard. That's the tax commissioner determines that. That's what that House bill is attempting to do, is change the requirement of the tax commissioner. He's the one that says what look back period I can use. I don't have that authority. I have to use what he tells me.
And do you ever look ahead? And
No.
you think that?
Well, no, I mean, the argument is, so these values are as of January 1st of this year. This is always a look back. Appraisals always look at a moment in time in the past. It's just how they are, because it's a fixed point in space. But then the Board of Tax Authority, who monitors appeals, they give you a window range. So if you appeal a year later, they let you look back at a number, or if it's sold a month after, they'll let you look forward a month for the sale price. Because the house didn't just bulk change, right? It sloped. But in general, those are only done at the appeal stage. They're not generally done at the appraisal stage. And I think that's where the problem is now. So to answer your question, yes and no, but it's not a clean science. It's an estimate, But the true test is sale. So house sells, that's what it's worth. That's what somebody paid for it on the open market. Everything else is guesswork. And that's the problem. All of you have to sell your house to get a true value. And yet, how many people here have sold their house in the last year? Nobody. So you're all experiencing what somebody else got. That's what's inherently unfair about it. But that's a really good question. Yes, sir.
Is there something that could be done, is there something that could be done to have that changed, or is that something you would have to do through the state level?
It's got to go through the state. A tax commissioner, I think, is it also a victim of or structure of Ohio Revised Code. So the legislature would have to make that act happen. Yeah, their hands are basically confined to the law, as are mine. You know, we've got very little wiggle room.
One important person that we should go to, Senator O'Brien.
You know, that's who I'm using because any senator you know. I mean, Senator O'Brien, Senator Serino, Matt Dolan would be a good guy. State reps. Matt Dolan would be a good guy. Sarah Fowler, if you know Sarah Fowler, she's a rep. You know, Steve Demetrio. You know, they may not cover your area, so you have to understand. If you're approaching them, they may say, well, you're not really a constituent. But, you know, they really all care about the same problem. So I chose Senator O'Brien because she is my senator. I mean, that's kind of how I looked at it.
I got a letter from David Joyce suggesting her, and I encourage everybody to write to her.
Yep.
Or Sarah Fowler.
But don't say I.
I encourage it.
You encourage, yeah. The guy with the big increase.
I also wrote to the Board of Commissioners, the Ohio Department of Taxation, and asked them to please work on this for the taxpayers.
Good for you. Thank you for doing that.
And Sarah Fowler and Brian.
And again, we're going to be at the next commissioner
I
meeting.
wrote to you too.
Oh, did you? I got that. Pam? But anyway, we are going to be at the commissioners meeting next Tuesday. If you want to come and support us, you're welcome to do so. We're going to plead our argument and say, here's a way you can help the taxpayers. They do want to do it. They state they do. But, you know, like everybody, sometimes you need a little encouragement, right? I mean, you know, I know, yes, Luke.
Is there a way that citizens can reach out to their school districts and talk with them about making some change?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I would recommend. Right now, you know, it's the political season, right? Everybody got a sign in their yard. So definitely reach out to the people running for school board, but that's not going to fix this problem this year. I think you need to go to existing school board members and treasurers. You know, I think the lady had a very compelling argument that schools suffer from a different illness, but we all pay for it. And so I think there has to be give and take. My big issue is I think that everybody who's benefiting from this inside millage needs to understand they can hurt themselves forever by doing the wrong thing, right? I think if they do the right thing now, they build confidence in the tax base. The people say, I trust you because when you were getting a windfall, you thought of me. And now if you say you need money, maybe I'll think of you. I think that's what government should be. It never is, but we should go strive to that goal. And I know there are some people running for elected positions that carry that thought in their head. And I encourage you to reach out to them. There's people in this room that are running that think that way. And you should encourage them to fight the fight because it's not always pleasant, but it's our job. And you know, if we didn't want to do it, we shouldn't have taken this role.
Where is the commissioners meeting now?
It's right down the hall. Right, Pat, instead of going to the left from the elevators, go to the right, it's the first room.
When is it?
9:30 on Tuesday.
Tuesday morning?
Tuesday morning.
Can you provide the resources that we would need on your website? You know, some of the people they've talked about here today.
You mean like the senators and stuff? Yeah, we could do something like, can't we, Pam? Pam will take care of that.
Give the residents some resources.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we can do that. Sure, we can put links to their locations and stuff. Yeah, happy to do that. Somebody else had a question. Yeah.
Comment that most people do not understand. When there's a levy on the ballot, an operating levy for your community, for your school district, or the county, there is a difference between a renewal levy and a replacement levy. A renewal levy keeps the cap from House Bill 920 intact. If your school district or your city or your village or your township or the county commissioners ever let a levy expire, put a new replacement levy on the ballot for you to vote on, yes or no, to replace that renewal levy that they're letting expire, it starts the clock over again. Your rates are going to go up, your taxes are going to go up because it's the clock over again with respect to House Bill 920. So be very careful. If your school board members, your township trustees, your mayor, village city council, or the county commissioners ever propose replacing an existing levy, not with a renewal of it, but with a replacement, if you don't want your taxes to go up, you better let them know that you don't want them to do that.
Yeah, replacement, renew and add, or renew and increase, the increase is a new levy. So those are the buzzwords.
Starts the clock all over
Replacement
again.
starts 920 all over again. Yep. So, I mean, the safest levy to pass is a pure renewal levy, because it doesn't change your tax. You know what you're gonna get. Anything else, and you're gonna get something. You were gonna say something.
Well, I just wanted to, you know, everyone's been talking about contacting your legislators, that, as you've said, that is what needs to be done, is it has to be changed at the Ohio state level. But based on the appraisal schedule, this year is the year that most counties are either having a reappraisal or an update. So this is the time that's gonna have the largest impact.
Yep.
So this is the time, I think.
This is the perfect storm.
Even if you have friends that live in Cincinnati, friends in Columbus, friends in Dayton.
Have all of them call
anybody-
Sandra O'Brien.
Anybody contacting anybody you can is the only way that's gonna change this issue. And this, I think, shows that this is the prime time to do so, because the most percentage of the state is gonna be affected by it.
Yep. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Sorry.
So have these changes already gone into effect, or?
Well,
if-
technically, they have, from a standpoint of your value was changed effective January 1 of this year. You haven't paid the tax on it yet, because you pay your taxes a year in arrears. So you won't pay your tax till January. But any relief can still get in under the wire. So we have reached out to these entities. If they reduce an existing levy by the amount of the increase, we will get it in this year so that it's effective in January. We can provide that relief if they act quickly. We only have 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Shortly after the election.
Shortly after the election, the deal is off. I've got to certify and I've got to send it to the state and I get the tax rates. So we're at a short time window here. That's kind of why we've been hustling to try
Those
to.
values been posted?
They haven't, they've been sent into our system. We haven't flipped the switch yet because we wait till the letters are ready to go out.
I looked the other day.
Yeah, they're not,
Show that.
they're in there, but you can't see them.
When
Yeah.
you say they can provide the relief, who's the?
They being the county, the townships, cities or villages and the school districts. They can provide relief
By not using all of their inside millage this year.
by actually reducing an outside millage levy by the amount of the increase. Because I don't want to populate inside millage to be available for people to grab. It's a money,
If it's on the ballot already, how can they reduce it?
It's existing levy. They can throttle a different levy, the amount that they're going to get in excess in inside millage. We will work it out with them. So if they have a levy they're currently, let's take a township. Say they have a road levy that they've been getting $2 million or $1 million on a year. If they're going to get $250,000 more in inside millage, they can tell us to collect $250 less in that road levy and they'll send the money over to road. Road gets made whole, you get a zero change.
So
It's just,
trustees have to have a motion and vote in favor.
they'll pass a resolution. And I've already worked with the prosecutor's office. They're prepared to create the resolution for them to help them and guide them. And we're telling them, be a little conservative. These are estimates, but we can get you close. You know, we don't want to strap them for money, but we'd like to relieve you as much as possible.
And your school board can do the same, and actually far more taxes go to the school districts than to the county and the villages and the cities and the townships.
Any other question? I know I've kept you here a long. Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
So it was a little more than a month ago, I heard that the CAUV was gonna go up 300%.
Ashtabula County went 300. Our most common soil type in Geauga went up 101%, 103%. You guys remember hearing that from Alec?
Yeah, it sounds about.
103% in Geauga, 300% in Ashtabula. They're different because of the wineries and all that. They have a whole different structure. They have a lot more of that industry. Yep. Any other questions? Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, so the township says, yeah, I'm gonna reduce our tax levies because we're getting this windfall. That's only for 2024.
Yes.
They have to do it again for 2025.
Yeah, yes, you're exactly right. My solution proposal is short-term. That's why House bill change or some change in the legislature is permanent. You're exactly right. If they only did it 1 year, next year they get the windfall. So that's a really good, you got it. So you heard what I said.
Every year.
Yep. They'd either have to do it every year or we have to fix it some other way. Yep. Anybody else, or you folks can all go and go to sleep? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I don't understand when you say the farm value went up on.
Soil type values. So CAUV, they analyze soil type values.
Yeah.
And they set a value for them. They went up 100% for the most common soil, and I don't remember the name of the soil
How does
type.
that figure in?
It affects the rate that they're gonna give you for credit for CAUV.
This long.
Good or bad?
I guarantee you it's not good, but yeah, it's not a good thing, because the value of that land to be used other than for CAUV is much higher. It's crazy. Well, Farm Bureau is active in that, so I've been talking with them, and they're pushing their own legislative agenda on that. That's a good question, though. Hey, this is not, this isn't just shared by us, this is, the whole county's experiencing this. Anything else? If you have any other questions, feel free to stick around, my folks will be here. If you forget something, you want to call my office, just call, we're happy to help you. I'm sorry that I have to give you that news, but, please don't shoot the messenger, or, shoot the messenger. But, remember Chris Hitchcock? Chris Hitchcock here. Chris Hitchcock here. He's the treasurer. Fling him.